Special counsel Robert Hur has released his report on President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. The report concludes no criminal charges against Biden are warranted, and also says there was evidence that Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials as a private citizen. There were a number of references to Biden's cognitive abilities, notably calling him a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. I have to say, the media coverage is out of context of what I read the entire thing, and if you read it, which no one will, nonetheless, this is what happened. It was damaging. Biden lashed out at the special counsel during a press conference late last week, particularly at the claim that he could not remember the year his son Beau died. The guy was talking about strategy around a trial. Biden did mix up the presidents of Egypt and Mexico at a press conference. That said, Donald Trump mixed up the presidents of, I think, Turkey, and then he thought Nikki Haley was Nancy Pelosi, so let me just equalize that. Donald Trump also weighed in saying if Biden was going to be charged with classified documents, and neither should he, calling his own case selective persecution. It is not. So it obviously created a lot of things. People were furious about the number of stories in the New York Times and columns, and I would agree there were 7 of them talking about Biden's age and nothing. And they did not put what Trump said a day later about letting the Russians attack Europe in the same spot. It was very weird media selection. I never say the media is biased, but boy, was that something to see. It's still a problem, and a large amount of people believe both are too old. I think over 60%. More people believe Biden is too old compared to Trump. Let's not equalize it. Trump has 91 indictments. It's not comparable, but it's still a problem. So, and you've talked about this a lot. So what do you think about this? Well, how do you get beyond this? I think you saw him moving out last night during the Super Bowl, even though he didn't do the traditional interview. He did a ton of social media. It was all very clever, funny, making fun of himself. He's got to get out there, I think, ultimately. What are your thoughts?
I saw it simple as either really poor judgment or a planned hit piece, because he was there to talk about the legal veracity of these documents, which President Biden turned over, versus President Trump tried to hide and destroy evidence. And again, it goes back to what my friend Duff Seidman says. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And basically, the special prosecutor did his job to the extent that it was clear. He said, this was an error in judgment. As soon as he recognized his error in judgment, he fully cooperated, and he's the one that disclosed he had these documents. So he drew sharp relief between the two cases and did his job. He's not there, though, to be a neurobiologist and make comments that anyone reviewing this thing would go, you realize this is going to be blown up into something much bigger, and it has no legal frame. It's not appropriate. Now, the larger issue here is that when you have a 77 or 78-year-old obese man and an 81-year-old man, there's about a 7% chance every year that they're going to die. So essentially, between now and the election, there's a little less than a coin flip chance that one of these two slips and breaks a hip or something like that. And what is just so upsetting and frustrating is that America produces more remarkable people, I believe, than any nation in history. We have remarkable military leaders. We have remarkable artists, business people. Every time I go to Washington, as much as we shitpost Washington, I meet remarkable people. And we end up with two people, quite frankly, that just should be nowhere near the White House because of biology. It has nothing about their character. Let's just put that aside right now. People this old should not be put in positions that require this exacting a cognitive, physical, and emotional and mental stamina, which nobody has at that age. I don't care if you're fucking Jack LaLanne. This is just insane. But anyways, here we are. But the reality is, they're both really old men, and so I find it discouraging that those are the two people we've produced. But this, in my view, was either very poor judgment or a naked hit piece.
Yeah, it was.
Because to think that this wasn't going to go crazy in the media and that we're going to zero in on this shit was just not, to be honest with the
I thought the media could have done a much
impact.
better job, because Trump has been saying, like literally at Pennsylvania and then North Carolina, he said a series of incoherent things. I think the point I was trying to make actually on Chris Wallace, the show, because they were like, this is a big problem. Like, are you Trump, Trump isn't as bad. I'm like, almost worse, because he says incoherent
We've
things.
gotten used to it, Trump.
You're used to it.
He lies so much that
You're
we
used to
that we
his
don't think it's cognitive decline.
Someone wrote Trump is incoherent and occasionally is coherent, and Biden is coherent and is occasionally incoherent. But more than that, Biden has always had gaffes, right? He's definitely old, no question. He has more gaffes than ever. He's always has gaffes. Trump is getting increasingly insane. That's like, it reminds me, and the reason I think Biden gets more attacked for it is because I'm thinking of a nursing home. He's the nice guy in the nursing home and occasionally can't find his apartment, right? That kind of, like, I'm going to use a metaphor. Trump is the guy in the cafeteria who accuses everyone of stealing his fork or his Jell-O or whatever. The reason he seems more vigorous is because he's louder, but that doesn't make him any less cognitively disabled, right? He just seems vigorous, and that's true. But the crazy one in the nursing home is the one I'm worried about. The loud one is the one I'm worried about, and not the sort of friendly old guy who's effective, by the way, speaking of which. Now, let me just say, the day after his comments encouraging Russia to do whatever the hell they want to any NATO country doesn't meet defense guidelines, this is a dangerous, incoherent person who already was problematic. The NATO's Secretary General said Trump's words could undermine security and put American and European forces at risk. These comments, and Nikki Haley even said, this kind of comment that makes Joe Biden look clear-headed. Joe Biden is clear-headed about this. These comments are, if he's not incoherent, then he's dangerously leading us into a world war. It's just astonishing that there's even a comparison between the two and that equalization of this. And the fact that the New York Times did not put this on the very top of the thing and kept referring to Joe Biden's that stupid report was, I think, a dereliction of their duty. I've never say that about a media, but in this case, when I heard that out of his mouth, I was like, are you kidding me what he just said? Dangerous, and if he meant it, he's dangerous, and if he's incoherent, he's even worse, more dangerous.